Here we go. And we are live right before the start of Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right, here on YouTube. The podcast on Blog Talk Radio is about to start now. So we are going to be live in 30 seconds. But if you're, no one's watching yet, but I did want to get this running up first before the other show starts. You can hear everything, including the intro. So there we go. And we will be back we will start in 15 seconds.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it's area code 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. If you are listening live during the broadcast, you can sign in with your free Blog Talk Radio account at blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan. Go to the episode page and join us in the chat room at the bottom of that page, and it's free to join up on Blog Talk Radio. Also, if you are watching live on YouTube, just remember to subscribe or follow the channel. Deminox saying hi, waving at the screen because I can see you and you can't see me. Or maybe I can. Anyway, so you can join us on YouTube, and Deminox is there with us, the first Liberal Dan Radio Patreon, so shouts out to Deminox for that. We're going to be discussing the Afghanistan issues today, but first, we're going to start with this week's headlines. The biggest news this week is that the Pfizer vaccine was fully approved for use in folks 16 and up. Looks like conservatives will have to find new excuses to not protect themselves, like rejecting ventilators. One caller to Conservative Talk Radio said, "I'd rather die than go on a ventilator." Well, you know, you do you, bruh. Speaking of idiots, ivermectin is all the rage amongst people who don't want to take vaccines because they don't know what's in them. But they'll buy ivermectin from a pet store. In Mississippi, there's a shortage of ivermectin, and 70% of all poison control calls in Mississippi have been from ivermectin poisoning. I mean, the very least they could do if they're going to take medicines from pet supply stores is to get spayed or neutered as well. While Louisiana and Florida remain hotspots for COVID-19, there is one place that is leading the surge as a percentage-wise of the population, and that happens to be none other than South Dakota, home of the Sturgis Rally.
Woo dog, down here in Liberal Dan's Chopper City, we got some steals on Harley Davidsons today. Turns out holding Sturgis wasn't that bright of an idea, but while festival goers pass away, we're passing on the savings to you. All our Harleys come freshly sanitized for your riding comfort, and while supplies last, we're throwing in some antibacterial gel and a 12-pack of 2-ply, just in case the store's running out again. So come on down to Liberal Dan's Chopper City and get you a hog today. Liberal Dan Chopper City is a fictional establishment, and we don't know what the death toll of Sturgis will be.
COVID-19 has struck the Arizona recount, infecting the CEO and 2 others in cyber ninjas. Supposedly they are quite sick. This will cause a delay in the narrowly anticipated results. Karma. In adult news, OnlyFans was planning on dropping adult content because of issues with the payment processors and the requirements on reporting thereof. Talk about forgetting the one who brought you to the dance, but just today they've announced that they will continue to allow adult content after all. Is this too little too late? Only time will tell. Liberal Dan Radio reminds you that sex work is work, and many of these policies that are claimed to be done to protect people only ends up hurting sex workers and potentially causes the harm that they claim to support or want to end. In election news, a judge has ruled that a portion of Georgia's SB 202 that prevented pictures from being taken of ballots is no longer enforceable. One down, many parts to go. In entertainment news, the baby from the Nirvana album is all grown up, and Spencer Eldon is suing the band, claiming exploitation. It's okay, my guy. Nobody believes that you are still that small. Not there's anything wrong with that. Liberal Dan Radio also opposes body shaming. No news on if he comes to the courtroom, if Eldon will have to dress up in a suit, or if the judge will tell him to come as you are. No news if the Universal Music Group thinks that the case is dumb. Maybe they think it smells, but like Teen Spirit, I don't know. Perhaps if they settle, the man will just say, never mind, to the lawsuit. Or maybe Eldon just wants all apologies to be given to him. At least the picture wasn't taken in utero. And finally, the Texas abortion law that encourages people to turn in abortion clinics for not following the law starts September 1st. A website, ProLifeWhistleblower.com, has been created to aid people in reporting, and it would be a damned shame if people were to swarm that website and make it so that the data received was unusable. And that was this week's headlines. And apparently I have caused much pain to Demonox with all of my Nirvana puns. But, dad jokes are rad jokes. So, we've got a lot to talk about today on the show. Daily News, hey Dan, didn't you play that last week? I'm going to play it every week, especially as new information about South Dakota comes out, and if it shows that, more and more, people are getting sick because they held the Sturgis rally. Maskless, crazy people riding their Harleys. So I'm going to milk that because I feel that that's one of the best produced things that I've ever made. And so, one of the best, if not the best produced things I've ever made. So I'm going to keep milking that until, I can no longer, it doesn't make sense to do so. So deal with it. Anyway, so there is a lot of stuff to talk about, and we're mainly going to be talking about Afghanistan for most of the show. Let's go ahead. Which one do we want to play first? Let's do Hypocrite, because this one is mildly on that, because you had a reality TV star and Fox News host is going to be this week's Hypocrite of the Week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play Hypocrite of the Week first.
This week's Hypocrite of the Week is Fox News' Rachel Campos Duffy, who said,
You wonder who are the people responsible for putting someone this incompetent and frankly this, mentally frail in this position. And that's, yes, of course, the media, and many people are saying Susan Rice and Obama and maybe Valerie Jarrett. I'm sorry, as a political spouse, I can't help but look at Jill Biden. No one knew better his state of mind than Dr. Jill Biden. And if you ask me, the most patriotic thing Jill Biden could have done was tell her husband to love her husband and not let him run in this mental state that he's in. I think she failed the country as well.
Besides the fact that she's picking on President Biden's mental capacity while being unable to form a coherent sentence herself, she also supported the ultra-incompetent and mentally frail Donald Trump. Did she call on Melania to take action about Trump's clear speaking and other mental issues? Oh wait, I guess not, because he said this.
You'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. So they say, could you repeat that? So I said, yeah. So it's person, woman, man, camera, TV. Okay, that's very good. If you get it in order, you get extra points.
To see who next week's Hypocrite of the Week will be, tune in to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central on blogtalkradio.com/LiberalDan.
And there you go. Even though last week was my episode about obesity, you got a supersized version of Hypocrite of the Week this week. All about the hypocrisy of being critical of, I like how they call her Dr. Jill Biden when it's convenient to them, or when they're trying to mock somebody as if they have any room to mock somebody with a PhD. But, they're trying to mock her or criticize her for, letting President Biden run for office or whatever. Donald Trump, Mr. Covfefe, the oranges of the drawdown of the Afghanistan, pullout. If only Fred Trump would have pulled out, as I said last week. Lots of hypocrisy there, but I did want to there was so much stuff to put in there that I had to make it a special, supersized example of Hypocrite of the Week this week. So let's go ahead and take the first commercial break, come back, start discussion of the topic of Afghanistan, taking your calls as well. 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. This is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Are you planning a trip to Disney soon? Do you want help avoiding spending mistakes and making the most of your vacation? Then check out budgeteers.com, a new site devoted to helping you get the most mouse for your money. What kinds of tickets should you get? Is the dining plan a good deal for you? Should you stay on grounds or not? Should you buy park hoppers? Many other sites are filled with information about what other people like to do, but Budgeteers is geared to help you make the best decision for you. So check out budgeteers.com or go to youtube.com/budgeteers and help make your trip the best it can be. Budgeteers.com is not a travel agency and it is not affiliated with the Disney Corporation or any of its holdings. In a world gone mad, one progressive will do a bad movie trailer guy impression to get you to listen to his show. There's only one thing that I like better than the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. Alright, Bill, that's enough of that. On the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast, you will hear an honest discussion of the day's issues, with some personal bits in between. You might even hear what the other side has to say, sometimes even in their own voices. So become one of the Liberal Dan family, because family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. To hear those bad impressions and more, tune into the Liberal Dan Radio Minicast. Talk from the left, that's right. And I think to myself, what a wonderful show. Yeah. If you enjoy Liberal Dan Radio, there's many ways that you can support the show. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter or TikTok. And you can become a Liberal Dan Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a shout out. Higher levels get the opportunity to vote on what I do next on the podcast, the minicast, or on YouTube. You can even buy commercial advertising or sponsor bits. So go to patreon.liberaldan.com and support the show today.
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Deminox, host of The World According to Knox. It's time for Season 2, where I take you on another trip through my world. The world of movies, video games, pop culture, and more. Relate them to the world around you. Don't forget to leave a question for Marscat, and find me on Twitter by the handle XDeminox. That's the letter X like X-Men, DEMINOX. Now enjoy the rest of your podcast.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it's area code 914-803-4131, 914-803-4131. And of course, again, you could join us in either the blogtalkradio.com chat at blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan. Go to the episode page as long as you're signed in with your free account, and you can join us there. We also have the chat on YouTube, Liberal Dan Radio on YouTube as well, that you can feel free to join in as well there. And the benefit of being on YouTube is you get to, see the awesome shirt that was made by Deminox as well. Because, He wants to see me, but the shirt is where it's at. Also wanted to give shout out to Demonox's bladder for being the runner-up hypocrite of the week, for apparently not being nice to him on his ride home for every bump that he hit. So let's see. All right, not dealing with that at the moment. But anyway, so we do have. What are we talking about? Well, let's just start the show with this our appropriate quote.
Ha ha! You fool! You fell victim to one of the classic blunders. The most famous is never get involved in a land war in Asia, but only slightly less well known is this: never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
Anyway, so yes, anybody who is a fan of The Princess Bride would know that going into Afghanistan and trying to sit there for 20 years was a huge mistake. It was a huge mistake, and we shouldn't have done it. We clearly could have gone, I have no problem with the fact that we were trying to go after the Taliban and go after the people who were giving aid and comfort to Al-Qaeda, who were trying to, harm us and who did harm us on 9/11. That's fine, but when we had mission creep, that was the problem. That now turned to nation building when we have no business nation building, and clearly that attempt to nation build was an utter and complete failure. Of course, that failure doesn't, as many conservatives want to say, doesn't just land right on Biden. It lands on everybody who contributed to the nation building. In fact, the only person who probably didn't nation build of the presidents was Biden. He was like, we're going to get out of this stuff. We're not going to do it. Anyway, so one of the problems, and I want to start off with this part of, Biden pulling out and his timing, and whether or not a president in general should be able to go against what former presidents do and change clearly when it comes to some domestic policies or how their own administration is going to be run. A president is going to have wide but not unlimited opportunities to change course, so to speak, from what the former president or former presidents have done. So clearly they have that authority, but they don't always have that authority, even when it comes to domestic policy. Remember when Trump was trying to change how we treated DACA recipients, and even though he was pretty terrible about that regardless, because, we made deals with people like, okay, you're going to give us information and we're going to be nice to you. And then as long as you're following the rules, and they said, nope, Trump wanted to change that. But the courts came in and said, well, there are certain things that you can't stop processing DACA. You have to do these certain things, despite the fact that they were done via executive order. Biden, just I think today or yesterday, I think it's today, is now required by a Supreme Court ruling to continue Trump's so-called remain in Mexico policy while they await court dates. So even though it might be more dangerous for them to be over there, and even though Biden wants to allow them to come here and wait for processing, wait for their hearings for asylum, the court said no after the state sued. The court said, no, you can't do that. Now, there's nothing in the law there's no law that basically says that, but they basically required Biden to follow what Trump did. So you can't just say overall that Biden does have carte blanche to be able to do whatever he wants and to change any policy of a former president, because clearly the courts have ruled that that's not the case. But what about an international policy? I think that's even where it gets more murky when it comes to international policy, because let's say, Demonox is president, and Demonox makes a deal with a country, says we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to X, Y, and Z, and you're going to do A, B, and C, and we've made a deal, we've made a bargain, and then Demonox goes out of office, and I run against Demonox, and maybe I should have used Bringing It Boy as the example, because I'm more than likely to run against Bringing It Boy than I would to be against Demonox. So let's say Bringing It Boy does. Demonox would be a benevolent dictator. But so Bringing It Boy runs for office, becomes president. I have a big problem with many of the things that Bringing It Boy does, so I challenge him after his first term, and guess what? I end up winning. But Bringing It Boy had made deals with foreign leaders and other countries to be able to do X, Y, and Z. That we're going to agree to do X, Y, and Z again. Well, you do A, B, and C, and we're going to make these deals. And even if it's not a treaty, because a treaty is a whole separate animal. Treaties are signed by president, ratified by the Senate. They clearly have to be followed, regardless of who is next. But even if it's not a treaty, even if it's just a negotiated deal made between a president or whatever, I'm not saying that all of those, all such deals would have to be followed, regardless of how bad they were. But if a president feels that that he could change whatever deal that he wants to change. If a president's like, well, I'm new, and every deal that you made, I can feel like I can throw it out the window. I have no reason to follow it, no reason to keep it. That would then mean that no country would feel safe in negotiating with a president, because they would not want to say, they would say, this is good for until the end of your term, but what guarantees do we have, since this isn't a treaty, what guarantees do we have that this arrangement is going to last past your term? And if American presidents make a tradition of going back on the deals made by previous presidents, then that neuters the ability of any president to make any deal, because the people who they're making deals with are going to say, well, the last president went back on this deal, so why am I going to make a deal with you when your next president after you could just go ahead and change it anyway? So the idea that, lovely, we had a new user that joined and left the conversation called Gavin Moorhead, lovely. Anyway, so the idea that Biden was free, could have just changed Trump's deal that he made, is false, because had he done so, that would hurt his ability and any future president's ability to be able to make future deals. And again, if we got into, I'm not going to say that, we can't just say that they can never do it, because maybe a president would get us into a bad deal. I mean, Trump did it. He thought there was a deal that was a bad idea. He pulled us out of the Paris Accords, and a lot of people are like, well, this sucks. And of course, we go back into it now. But if we just keep, pulling out and going back in and pulling out and going back in, the entire world's going to get fucked. Sorry. That was bad. Anyway, so I swear I didn't plan that. That was just off the cuff. But nobody in the world is going to trust that we will be trustworthy. Nobody in the world will believe any president, because they're like, well, why should we even bother negotiating this with you? Because your next president could just completely do a 180 and screw us over yet again. Let's see. I would no. Demonox should avoid politics and the inevitable guillotine. She has to put up on the ego and BS. Real life don't make her imagine me as president. Trump wouldn't know a good deal if he hired a ghostwriter to make a book about it. Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I've talked about in last week's, is the art of the deal guy, Donald Trump. It has a lot to blame in this. I mean, we'll talk about what Biden's blame is, because there's blame for Biden. Absolutely. There's blame to be there to be said for Biden. But Trump has a lot to blame. And so does Bush, and so does Obama, because they continued. I mean, a vast majority of Americans believe that we should have left Afghanistan during the Bush years. that we should have been done then. We should have gone after, we should have went after, and even if we didn't leave after the Bush years, we have, where we caught, I don't think we caught bin Laden in Afghanistan anyway. He had left because we were there. So we should have left and followed him and tried to hunt him down and get rid of and deal with him and bring him to justice. And Obama kept his campaign promise and did that. But we should have, Bush should have said, look, bin Laden's not here anymore. We're not going to be here anymore either. We're going to have fun with your country. Maybe we help, stabilize it. But there's more about that later, about whether or not we could have ever hoped to have stabilized it, which I think clearly has shown that that's false. We could not have stabilized it at all. But Trump, again, as I've said in weeks, but I did talk about this a little bit last week, and Trump absolutely is to blame in this. He has a large portion of it. He negotiated with the Taliban. Everybody wants to call Taliban terrorists, and I'm not going to argue with that point. I agree. The Taliban is a terrorist group. I have no reason to believe that they've changed their stripes or their spots or what have you. But he negotiated a deal with them. He had 5,000 Taliban prisoners freed, including the current leader. And he had a pullout date earlier than what Biden wanted. He wanted us gone by May. Do we really believe that a pullout under Trump, had Trump won the election, and I know you're going to say, conservatives who might be listening, well, Trump did win the election. No, he didn't. Stop it. It's ridiculous. But do we really believe that Trump would have pulled out earlier? And well, one of the arguments that are going to be made, that is made, I guess, when it comes to the pullout, is the Trump said the other day, I would have made sure that everybody was gone first, that all of the Americans would have been withdrawn before we pulled out. Well, that's ridiculous. Why is that ridiculous? Well, to say that you were going to pull out all of the ambassadors and all of the embassy staff and all of the diplomats and all of the other people working in Afghanistan with this new Afghanistan government, to say that is to basically admit that you were giving up on Afghanistan's current government. That you were basically saying that we don't believe in you and we're pulling out, and that would have been a recipe for the exact same for everything that happened. There was no way to know. There was absolutely no way to know that the Afghanistan army that we funded and equipped would fold as quickly as they did. There's no way that we could have known that. None. There was plans in place for if the Taliban did make moves, and if the Afghanistan army was unable to fight them effectively. But I don't believe anybody believed that it was going to be that quick. That well-armed fighting force, that well-numbered fighting force just went, meh, we give up. Furthermore, back to what Trump did, he reduced troop levels. Trump reduced troop levels to 2,500. He did that. He left Biden with that. What was Biden supposed to do? Not pull out the rest? Was Biden not supposed to follow through? I mean, especially because Biden was under the belief, as I'm sure everybody else was, who were experts. I don't believe there's anybody, even if you ask the most diehard, staunch Republicans, if you ask them, how long would it take the Taliban to capture Kabul? Would you have thought 3 days? I don't think anybody would have put 3 days as the over-under. Maybe a month, maybe 6 months. let's see, you can't steal my freedom, which I'm sure is bringing a boy because it's all caps. Where are the facts? Where were you there when this was taken? I mean, if the facts have been reported, at least he wasn't going to leave all the defense military equipment. We'll get to that in a second. But leaving all the defense military equipment is secondary to the people who need to get out of there. Now, but conservatives cheered all of this. When Trump was saying, we're going to leave Afghanistan, we're going to reduce our troop numbers. This is where we're at troop-wise now. I want to be at this point by the end of the year. I want to be at this point by the end of my presidency, by the end of the term. You know, this is where I want to be. Of course, he didn't say when I leave office because he thought he was going to win. And like many other things, he's wrong. Again, but he was going to pull out earlier. There's no way that he could have done and anticipated that that the Taliban would have ran over Kabul that fast, unless he knew the Taliban was just going to, take it over then. And that's my conspiracy theory. This is what was the deal that was made ultimately with the Taliban. Was there a secret backroom part of the deal that turns the U.S. embassy into Trump Tower Kabul? I don't know. Maybe. If that comes true, then I'll be seen as a prophet. I probably still won't be able to get any viewers on my channel, but, at least the people who do watch will be like, hey, Dan was right about Trump Tower Kabul. Dan called it. But it is a part of conservative hypocrisy is that they cheered all of this happening when Trump was in office. And if Trump would have still been in office, I don't think, there are conservatives right now. I listen to the same conservative show I listen to in the morning. And I was listening this morning, and I'm waiting to drop my kid off at his school, my older one who is vaccinated. And I'm sitting there, and the host says something or a caller says something, and I'm like, so stupid. And so my son, who's 12, is like, why do you listen to this? Because even he knows it's ridiculous. And I'm like, well, I want to be able to know what the other side is saying so that I can have material on my podcast. And he goes, that's smart. So I managed to impress my son today. So get some dirt off. This way is where I do it. Get some dirt off my shoulder there. But yeah. What was I saying? Oh yeah. The conservatives on talk radio talking about what about the gay people in Afghanistan? They're going to be harmed now that the Taliban is coming back through. What about the women? As if conservatives care about gay people and women here. If Trump was the one pulling out of Afghanistan and pulling the troops and meeting his May 1st deadline, had people been there waiting to leave, no conservative would be going, oh, the poor gay people. Oh, the poor women. They wouldn't do that. Not one. You cannot convince me that they would be magically caring about gay people and women. The only reason they're bringing up gay people and women is because they're trying to use it as a bludgeon against the Democrats and against the left and own the libs by showing, oh, the Taliban, who are the conservatives of the area. The Taliban are the conservatives of Afghanistan. Just like the conservatives here, and just like the conservatives here, the Taliban successfully took over the government building, as opposed to the conservatives in America who did not successfully take over the government building. That's probably one of the reasons why the conservatives here are so upset, because they feel one-upped by the Taliban. The Taliban did what the conservatives couldn't do. It is what it is. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm taking your line, Donald. Where is it? The conservatives are mad that the Taliban did what the conservatives couldn't do.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. That really needs to be higher up on my list of sounds that I can play. Let's see. And what about, the simple fact of Afghanistan. Yeah. So, I'm skipping a whole part. Let's go ahead and take the second commercial break. Come back, take your calls as well. 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. This is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk to the left. That's right.
Greetings. This is Nimbus Yosh, host of the Percy Podcast. What is the Percy Podcast? Well, it's pretty much the smoothest talking host you'll ever hear in your life, talking about all kinds of things. Political things, nerdy things, fun things, not so fun things. Go ahead, give a listen, and follow at the Percy Podcast for more updates and information. Why not sit back and take a listen to one of the best podcasts you'll ever hear, and no one else will. Catch you on the tunes.
Do you want to set money aside for a rainy day? Do you want to open an account that will give you a savings bonus each month? What if I told you that you can get both and have a chance to win $10 million? YADA is an FDIC-insured bank, and when you go to yada.liberaldan.com, open an account, and make your first deposit, you will get 100 entries into the next weekly drawing. You will also get entries each week you have a balance. So go to yada.liberaldan.com. That's YOTTA.liberaldan.com.
This is Amber Petrovich, aka Just Capital, talking investing and finance in the Just Capital Minute. FINRA fined the brokerage Robinhood a record $70 million for, among other things, lapses in customer service. This brings up an important issue. Which brokerage should you use and how do you choose one? There are several things to think about when you're choosing or switching to a brokerage. The first one is fractional share trading. Some brokerages that offer fractional or partial shares are Schwab, Robinhood, Fidelity, and Interactive Brokers. The second thing to consider is what the brokerage's interest rate is for trading on margin, i.e. borrowing from your broker. The higher your account balance, the lower interest rate you will typically pay to trade with margin. The average rate is about 5%. The third thing to consider is research. How much market information, including news, technical, and fundamental data, do you want? Do you want interactivity in your charts? Do you want a social experience? Then Webull may be the one for you. This has been the Just Capital Minute. Build wealth and fight the wealth gap.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, is area code 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. You can also, again, join us in the chat. We have people in both chats. You can go to the blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan, go to the episode page, go to the bottom, as long as you're signed into your free blogtalkradio.com account, and you'll be able to join us in that chat there. Or if you join us on YouTube, youtube.com/liberaldanradio or youtube.liberaldan.com. Either way gets you there, and you can join in that chat as well and see my, beard and, beard that I've grown back out and my Voltron shirt and everything. And then you could also subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, which is one of the best ways to support Liberal Dan Radio, is to subscribe to the channel so we can work towards getting monetization. Also, you can support the show by doing the patreon.liberaldan.com. You can go to there as well and support the show. You can either support nominally or sponsor bits. You could sponsor things like Words of Redneck Wisdom. Speaking of Words of Redneck Wisdom, let's go ahead and play this. Now, I will warn you, this is the fair warning that even though that the audio that I'm playing played over a terrestrial, over-the-air radio station, that there are some slurs in here that I was very disappointed that the host didn't dump out of. So I'm just warning you right now, a couple of slurs are incoming, so if you don't want anybody around you to hear it, this is where it potentially gets not safe for work. Maybe lower the volume, or just, if you're not watching live, just skip ahead a minute if you don't want to hear, the next 3 minutes, I should say. So now, without further ado, this is this week's Words of Redneck Wisdom.
And now, Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio.
I was just listening to Admiral Kirby, give his speech. I wouldn't want this guy
guiding my rubber ducky around the bathtub. I swear to God, I don't know where they get these people from. These people are horrible, and
same place that they got General Milley from, I guess, and this Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. He's a beaut.
Yeah, they're all buttes, and the worst part about it, like one guy said, when you fire them, they got 27 more right behind them, just as bad, if not worse. The only thing they want to do is get a political job and call it a day,
Mm-hmm.
But what I called you about is that, I'm sitting down here now, the Taliban, these bunch of raghead, no-count, rotten people, we got to be out for August 31st. Do we not have drones and snipers anywhere? If we got drones, they're driving around in Toyota pickup trucks, and if I was Toyota, I'd be paying for the drones so I could get my picture off the news, and turn around, send the snipers over there, send the drones over there. When the truck bleeds out, you blow the truck up with all the ragheads on it. Then you turn around, you let the snipers take care of the rest of them. Send in 20,000 troops. I mean, and I don't want to see our boys going in there. I really don't. But if we don't stop this, we're going to be in such a mess. And I think Steve was right, when he turned around and said, they're going to be hostages, and we're going to be paying to get them out. And if we don't come up with the money, what they'll do is they'll put somebody on TV, chop his head off, and then all the American people scream, pay him, pay him, pay him, pay him. And if I was getting ready to get my head chopped off, I'd want to pay him too. But you know what I mean? That's about how bad this thing's going to get to be. And, when people say it ain't all Biden's fault, I'm sorry. It is all Biden's fault. There's nobody else could have been that goddamn stupid. But I do have a way to get to the end of this thing, and I'm going to bring this up. I think we need a little levity every once in a while. We need 3 pictures. We need a picture of Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren, and Hillary Clinton in string bikinis, okay? And we're going to drop this on the Afghanis and tell them, this is your 72 virgins that are waiting for you. After they go blind, they're going to be easy to beat, And then tell Joe Biden, see on the other side of that wall, it's corn pop. Here's your piece of chain, go after him. Because I tell you what, he's an idiot.
And this concludes Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
And there you have it. I couldn't find any. I mean, there was clearly one section that was more horrible than the other, with another one following right behind it. The use of the slur for the, of course, bringing in boy or you can't steal my freedom 1. What's wrong? You can't steal my freedom 1 was the original one taken, so you had to take this one. You had to add the 1 to the end of it. You don't even have a problem with him using the term to describe the people over there, the RH term, the slur. You don't have a problem with that? No, I'm not gonna play that one more time. I might play my Liberal Dan's Chopper City ad one more time though, just because that's better. But no, to call people that is just ridiculous. I mean, it's the bloodthirstiness of it. I mean. Yeah, I have no problem taking out terrorists before terrorists take out us, but the level of bloodthirst in this guy's mind, and the fact that women have to be attractive to him in order for them to have any value, or many conservatives for that fact. That's why, who do you see on Fox News? They don't put out, the person on Fox News that I featured in the Hypocrite of the Week this week wasn't somebody who was there for her ability to make clear and succinct statements. That's for darn sure. She was there because they like to look at her. They only have the, quote, pretty women, even though they're ugly to the core. Demonox, I'd buy that pinup calendar, though. Throw Michelle about. I don't understand. Off topic a second. I don't understand the dislike or that conservatives have for when it comes to calling Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama's a beautiful woman. I don't understand, and she's brilliant too. That's probably why they don't like her, because she's brilliant. So they feel like they have to attack her, attack her looks-wise, or claim that she's really a man. Let's call her Michael. It's funny. Let's call Michelle Obama Michael because she looks like a man, because, she has some toneness to her arms. It's so stupid. Like, Barack's a lucky man. I'm just going to say that. Barack's a very lucky man to find somebody so intelligent and beautiful to be his wife. And obviously, good mother. They're obviously a very good couple together. Let's see. Yes, smart is sexy. I do agree with you, Deminox. And racism and bigotry is ugliness. There are people who would be stereotypically considered hot, by societal standards, who I would never want to touch with a 10-foot pole because, they're just ugly to the core, and their ugliness and bigotry would be the turnoff. No amount of Cialis or Viagra could help with those issues. But what's inside Michelle Obama that is ruthless? What? I don't understand that comment at all. Sometimes you lose me with your comments. I don't get that. Anyway, so one of the things, we're back to the topic of Afghanistan. And one of the things that I don't understand, and the caller, I'll get to you in a second. One of the things that I don't understand is when it comes to whether or not we should have pulled our troops out, is to determine, that it's going to hurt the feelings of the troops or the veterans who served over there, or the family of the people who served over there and died over there, or like the veterans who served over there and were injured. It's going to hurt their feelings to be able to if we're supposed to take that into consideration, like why does that come into play? As a general rule, we should make sure that our foreign policy, including our use of force, is done responsibly and only for the right reasons. So that's the way you take care of and you support the troops. And then when they come home, you make sure that they have adequate health care. You make sure that health care includes mental health, because mental health is just as important as physical health. You make sure that they have a place to stay and that they don't lose their house because, now that maybe they can't work because they're on disability. You make sure that they have a good pension. You make sure that our troops and their families are well taken care of, and especially their families. If somebody who is serving overseas dies in service of our country, regardless of what they're doing, their families should be taken care of. That's how you watch out for the feelings of the troops. But it is to me, it's disrespectful of the troops to continue an endless war and continue to throw troops at the problem when that's not going to solve the problem. I don't think it would ever have solved it. We could have been there for 100 years. We pull out 100 years later, 101 years, and the Taliban come back, because that's probably the way it was always going to be, because that's how that part of the world currently works. Unless you get some sort of philosophical reformation over there that stops the religious extremism, but we don't have a stop to religious extremism over here either. It's just not as brutal because, apparently our religious extremists are not as adept at taking over countries as their religious extremists are, at least domestically. Foreignly, we go take over countries all the time, and our religious extremists love to poke wasp nests and deal with stuff and all over the world, but they can't do it here because that's why they're jealous. They're jealous that the Taliban did what they couldn't have done. But anyway, we did complete the original mission. The original mission was to go after. I'm laughing at Deminox, but to quote Chris Tucker in Rush Hour 2, Man, no one understands the words coming out your mouth. And then, what is it? You stand, kill my, or bringing a boy goes, she is your queen. Now I have Coming to America in my head. She's your queen to be. Sorry. Anyway, so we completed the original mission of going into Afghanistan and taking out Al-Qaeda and going after Bin Laden, and Bin Laden's long gone. We've dealt with that. It's over. We owe it to the troops to use them responsibly. We don't owe it to the troops to continue an endless war just because some troop might have some feelings about the fact that, well, I lost my leg over there, and now they're pulling out, and the Taliban's taking back over, so that makes the loss of my leg somehow meaningless. But is the loss of your leg going to have meaning if you continuously send troops over there ad nauseum without end? I don't see how that makes the loss of the leg any better. I guess, and maybe somebody could explain it to me. And I'm open-minded to the idea that maybe I'm not thinking of something, and you know what? Maybe that person who lost the leg fighting, after we dealt with the Al-Qaeda, after we dealt with Bin Laden, and once the mission creeped to nation building, maybe that person should be mad about the fact that they lost the leg for for a reason that we should have never been there in the first place. But the fact that they should be mad about that doesn't stop the fact that we should not continue to do it. You should be mad about us nation building when we shouldn't be doing, regardless of whether or not we pull troops out of there now, or in 5 years, or 10 years, or 10 years ago when we should have. Well, not 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. More than 10 years ago. Wow. It's just, you feel old when you consider the fact that in a couple of weeks, September 11th was 20 years ago. 20 years. Let's see. They're intimidated and they can only feel secure by dehumanizing women. It's really the same pointless argument. If I suffered, so charge students more for child. Yeah, it is the same thing. I paid off my student loans, so I hate the fact that other people have to get their student loans written off. I had to do this, so that other people should have to do it too. I got whooped as a kid, so I should be able to whoop my kids too. Kids don't. That was another thing they said on conservative radio, that somehow that we took away beatings in school, so therefore, and kids are misbehaving, so therefore that's causational. It's a causational relationship to that. What if maybe if you stopped beating your kids back then maybe there would have been less problems because they would have found real reasons to respect your authority instead of bringing out a belt or whatever. Anyway, let's go ahead and take the caller. Hello, caller.
Yeah, hey, what's going on?
How are you today?
Yeah, pretty good. I got a whole nother mind direction here on everything. It just happened within, not too long ago, actually. I came across a couple things, and they were mind twisting.
Okay.
But, they're kind of crazy, but they're actually, I believe, the truth. And so, all these wars that have happened after World War II especially, I mean, yeah, it would have to be after World War II, unless Germany was working on this prior to the United States and what they have now have.
Okay.
Which is, so these wars were all just created not to win, of course. They were just there as a distraction to funnel money for other things they were working on, such as, I don't know, don't cut me off for what I'm going to say, but
okay.
For basically re-engineering, or what do they call that when you have something and you want to not re-engineer it, but you have something and you have to figure out what it is, how it works.
I mean, re-engineering sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's another something in there, but anyway, we'll use re-engineering.
Okay.
So, supposedly, and I do believe now that there has been alien spacecraft that crashed. Okay.
Okay.
So they have the spacecraft, and so what they needed to do is have funding to hire people and to pay for the re-engineering to find out how it works. So all these wars have been for that, because they couldn't tell the public, hey, we need you guys to pay taxes because we are re-engineering this technology, you know, that are and this and that, because they don't know how it was going to turn out, and they didn't. Now that they've got it, I don't know if you recently saw that one video of that Air Force jet.
Yeah, the UFO
that had the tic tac on their radar.
Yeah, it was called a UFO, and they said it was unidentified. So they affirmed that it was an unidentified flying object. They haven't confirmed that it's a alien flying object, but they did confirm that it was an unidentified.
Well, the technology is from an alien, but we were able to break it down, and that was ours. Made by I heard it was made by Northrop or anyway, one of those big
Northrop Grumman or whatever.
That, you know, yeah, Northrop or. So that's who, you know, that's one of ours. It's actually a human made from an alien spaceship. Now I just came up with the conclusion why it is that they pulled out of Afghanistan is because now they don't need to funnel money and hide money that they need for this technology, because they already have it. It's done. Okay, they've got this thing. This ship supposedly could fly from New York to Tokyo in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
So if you got something that can fly from New York to Tokyo in 5 minutes, you control the world.
All right.
Nobody can stop you.
All right. Well, we do have another caller, so I do want to get to the other call as well. But I'm going to put you on hold for a second. Thank you for your call. If you want to talk again, if you have another point to make, you can always hit 1 and come back on. What I will say, Sadie Sin says, big alien influencing everything. If the first bunch was true, maybe. I mean, you have the line from Independence Day, you know, David's father says, you know, what do you think? They charged $50,000 for a hammer, $20,000 for a toilet seat. You know, they knew that this was it. They knew then. Is, you know, all the quotes from Independence Day, that great movie. I really like Independence Day. It's a fun guilty pleasure of mine. But if we did have alien spacecraft, and if we did reverse engineer the items in the alien spacecraft and needed to be able to pay for it and afford the money to, yeah, you know, it's plausible. It's plausible that could be the thing. I am more inclined to believe, which was one of my next upcoming points, is that, you know, the simpler the explanation, the more likely it is to be right. And that maybe not be true in every circumstance. You know, there's exception to every rules, including this one. But the idea that, you know, that the one group that won this, that considered Afghanistan, the 20 years in Afghanistan, and the arming of the Afghanistani army, and now that, you know, doesn't matter who has it now. To quote this song from Tom Lehrer about Werner von Braun, you know, once the rockets come up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. The military-industrial complex made bank, made money hands over fists. Whatever the term is, whatever. They made a ton of money on our wars. You know, we have people in Congress who insist that we need to buy tanks that the military doesn't even want, or planes that the military doesn't even want. Why? Because these people want to pay back their campaign contributors. That's it. That's all they want to do. They want to pay off their campaign contributors. So, and those campaign contributors are often, you know, military industrial complex. You know, we could save tons of money by not buying those planes and not buying those jets and not buying those tanks that the military doesn't even want. They're just sitting out there in parking lots and tarmacs doing nothing. So so I'm sure I'm sure the fact that the military-industrial complex loved the fact that we were switching the mission from a mission to go after the Taliban and to go after Al-Qaeda specifically to a mission of nation building, because they saw, ooh, if we build a nation, that nation is going to need to have weapons and tanks and planes of their own, and that way we can fill our coffers even more. So yeah, as Sadie Sin says, Taliban taking over Afghanistan will equal money as well. But that money in the items that are already there, the equipment, the guns, the tanks, the choppers, the planes that are there that were supposed to be used by the Afghanistani government that we were supposed to have left in power, those, that money has already filled the coffers of the military-industrial complex. So they already won. They already got lots of money. Lots of new jets and private jets and cars and everything and houses and mansions for them. So the other caller, let's get to the other caller real quick. Hello, how are you doing? Where are you from? What's your name?
This is Mr. X. I need the identity of the caller who knew about our plan. I'm just screwing with you. It's me.
I know your voice. I know your voice. I just didn't know your. I just don't have your number memorized.
Yeah, I'd like to say to the other caller to check out the YouTuber Kyle Hill. He's a brilliant scientist who also breaks down things. But they did explain in full detail what those that video was talking about with the UFO.
Right.
When you look at a snowflake through a football field lens, it looks like it's like the snow is going crazy fast.
Right.
It was uncalibrated IR radar tech that they had just installed about a week prior, and the pilots weren't used to the configuration. So it was actually the afterflash of the engine in front of them scoped through a zoomed in lens. So when they moved the camera a millimeter, it made it look like that image was going thousands of miles an hour, because like you're panning across such a long distance, but really you're moving at a couple instances. So they recalibrated and the blips went away. That's all it was. But funny thing, my uncle has been to Area 51 because it's just an air base where they were testing at the time different types of stealth technology, like Raytheon. Raytheon did a lot of work in Area 51, really just like testing drones, testing the SR-71 navigational systems, testing the F-117, where they're trying to determine whether or not it would get picked up on radar, and they were adjusting the angles of the folds of the wings. That was all there. And the whole thing about aliens, the government just shrugged and went, well, this is a better cover story than we could ever come up with. So,
well, I was about to say, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true about that, or maybe that's what they want you to believe.
Possibly. I just love to tell people that. I want to get well.
Anyway, there you go.
But I love to tell people that my uncle technically worked on alien tech. My grandfather actually had a great thing because he was a scientist for NASA before they were kind of NASA, and he would tell people who were moon landing deniers, you're right, we didn't have the tech to land on the moon. We filmed it all on the soundstage on Mars. Because if you're going to go crazy conspiracy, like, why not? But the actual reason, the real reason to call was, I don't know if you noticed, I picked up a thing in the comments, and as critical as I am of Biden, and as critical as I am of pulling out, and as much as I think pulling out the way we did was a mistake, technically, he did have other options, but in everything I found, what those options were was he could have renegotiated if he withdrew, but he would have had to renegotiate, and there was a substantial risk of actually needing to increase the troops instead of decrease.
Right.
So he had the option of doing the pullout, which ended up being a terrible, shitty idea, which was also Trump's plan to begin with. So, again, you are 100% correct on the hypocrisy of the Republicans there, but his option was to do that or potentially make the situation even worse. So it was a damned if you do and royally damned if you don't.
Right.
So it was kind of no win. So I would like to let Bring It Boy know, as much as I also have many problems with Biden, I still have many, 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 many more with almost every other president. So that's not a uncommon thing for me. I haven't liked the president since I've been alive. But as many problems as I have, I'm sorry, no, I can't put this one on him. Like, I've tried. I've really tried, to be honest, and work every angle.
And I think, his statement that we're not going to see helicopters, fly, pulling people from the U.S. Embassy. That was, he didn't know that it was going to happen, but he could have made a different comment. He could have even said, I don't expect to see that, or he would have said, our goal is to not have that, or something like that. But that just turned out to just, 3 days later, what do we have? Helicopters pulling people off of the roof. I hate the word, but the optics of that was terrible. But
it was bad. It was the equivalent of an extended guffaw. And when you criticize somebody for a guffaw, that's not really criticizing their intelligence. That's criticizing a slip of the tongue or a figure of speech that retroactively didn't fit as well. That's not the same as saying somebody isn't intelligent or isn't brilliant. So, and just because Biden in his older age now takes a few minutes longer to formulate all of the sentences that he could formulate faster, that doesn't mean the sentences aren't being formulated. We had a sales guy. He's dead now at my work, and his accounts are still his, and his sales are still better than all the other sales guys who are currently alive. Because even though this guy was he worked until he was 89 years old, and he died in the hospital on the clock. He was slow, but he was smarter than any of them. So speed, especially as a neurodivergent person here, speed of speech and slips of the tongue is not the same as unintelligence.
And
context is what you determined intelligence.
True, absolutely.
Trump had a lot of context for no intelligence.
Yes. Although, I don't know. I had a bad comment to make, but I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't make it, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I think there is something broken with your YouTube.
Okay.
Because I'm on the phone now and I can still only see you. Where am I?
Oh yeah, we haven't quite figured that out.
I'm gorgeous. How come I'm not on the screen right now? Why can't the viewers see my beautiful face?
That should be the next thing. I should incorporate a Skype sort of thing where I can get you, get the other picture in picture or something and do that.
I think we would break the internet.
Yeah, there was
Only Dan's Plus now featuring
yes,
Brian.
Only Dan's, yes. Now that, yes, we should both wear a Voltron shirt too, and that would be even better.
Oh yeah, actually, I'm wearing my currently I'm wearing my Danger Eccentric Genius John Aston shirt because my Voltron shirt is in the wash.
Well, the other comment I wanted to make was I didn't know about your disdain for pulling out. That's a personal thing between you and Sadie.
Yeah, that's. But rude, dude.
I know.
Rude. I'm lucky I'm in another room because I'm going to get hurt.
Anyway.
But I'm going to let you go so I can go back and watch you on the big screen. I'm in a separate room so that there's no echo.
Okay, cool. All right, we're going to go back to our other caller who did raise his hand. Hello, welcome again. So anything to add to the points that were made by Demonox?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay.
2004, a woman who had the exact same experience as these recent ones in 2016 that they had shown on. So, you can try to explain that one, that both were out of, and they didn't know that, and this woman has recently been talking about it as of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So she wasn't told that her little radar deal that took this little tic tac that she talks of on Reuter. She's talking on, a very highly regarded news.
Right.
How do you pronounce it? Reuter?
Reuters, yes, on Reuters.
Reuter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reuters.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So she's on Reuters, and she's explaining in 2019. She saw it in 2004. And when she saw the ones that these guys were showing in 2016, she goes, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what we experienced, the exact same thing." Right. So this scientist that they pulled up, and listen, there's a secret department, okay? Trump and all these people that you see talking and doing whatever, they're nobodies, okay? There's a secret department that is an elite group that runs everything, man. This is
well, I don't want to go. I don't want to. I'm going to put
No,
you back on hold. I don't necessarily want to go too much into secret groups or Illuminati or any other things. We're not trying to be George Norrie or the other type of shows that are there, and it's fine. You know, I used to listen to George Norrie all the time. I used to think it was very entertaining. I used to think they had a lot of interesting things to say and a lot of interesting theories that people brought up. But I do want to get back. I'm not planning on doing a 3-hour show today. And I do want to talk about the rest of the topics, getting back to the topic of Afghanistan. But one of the things, and it's something that there are people who have taken offense to this point as well. But I think it's a valid point that the people of Afghanistan, or the military of Afghanistan, proved that they were unwilling to fight for themselves without our help. Like, why would we risk our troops one more day? If they're unwilling to stay, I mean, I think their numbers were supposedly greater than the Taliban. Their equipment was greater than the Taliban. If they had the numbers and they had the training of the American soldiers, and look, Trump was wanting to get us out of Afghanistan, and that was his goal to do that, then that's another point of failure for Donald Trump. Why didn't he make sure that our military, I mean, he wishes it was his military. Why didn't Trump make sure that our military didn't train their troops better? To make sure that they were trained to be able to handle and to be able to deal with combat situations without us being involved. Why didn't he make sure that that was the case? And he should have made sure that was the case, perhaps, before pulling down troops to the levels that he pulled it down, i.e. to the 2,500. But there's no reason for us to have stuck around a single day more, with the exception of, and if we would have known, maybe if we would have known for a fact that they would have just folded and just went like a baby having a tantrum, just like, how kids, if they have a tantrum, they just to the floor and just don't do anything. If we would have known that would have happened, yeah, maybe Biden would have been able to have said, okay, well, clearly these people are not going to fight for themselves. Clearly that's not going to happen. So we're going to make sure that as we're pulling out, that we're going to let all of the Americans know, and hopefully done quietly. We're going to let all the Americans know, and everybody else who worked with us, like the translators and people who did work for everybody who wants to come with us, you are free to come with us, and we're going to bring y'all with us, and we're going to start that process now. But we didn't know. We didn't have that feeling. We didn't have that understanding that the Afghanistani troops were going to just fold. Like, 7 deuce offsuit to a raise pre-flop. Now the thing is that we do have the situation where there are potentially equipment in the hands of the Taliban. So when we left Bagram, for example, the Bagram base, we should have either enabled it, or once it became clear that it was going to be over, that areas with our technology and our equipment were going to be overrun by the Taliban, we should have then done a strafing run and taken out our own equipment. We should have, launched some, drones or missiles over there, not to take out the Taliban in and of themselves, but to take out the equipment that was no longer, that we weren't going to use, and that the Afghanistani army was not going to use. If they were just going to cede that, then we should have either rigged them to explode, or basically say, hey, we're going to put these on these, we're going to put, we're going to rig them to explode if we need to. We're going to set it up so that has that possibility, or we're going to, launch a missile strike to that base and make sure that there's nothing left but wreckage, so that they can't used so nothing becomes usable. That is one thing that should have happened. And it didn't. So that is definitely one thing that I will blame Biden on, and that rests squarely on Biden's shoulders, is the inability to deal with the equipment. And maybe there's some plans on dealing with it after the fact. I don't know, but maybe he's waiting for everybody to get out first, and we could be wrong about this. Maybe Biden is waiting for all of the Americans and all of the Afghanistani people who want to get out because they worked for us or just want to, get asylum. Maybe he's waiting for all of that to finish so that he can then go do such strikes and take out all of our former military equipment. And if that happens, I'll do I was wrong, mea culpa. I was wrong. I will be more than willing to say Biden handled this how he should have. If that is what happens, I will give him that. I'll give that back to him. Let's see what else. But again, and people also say, in my notes as I'm going through what I was going to say on this, people also say that Biden should have pulled out, the American citizens before pulling troops out. But again, the message that sends is that we had no faith that the country was going to last. We knew it was going to be overrun by the Taliban. We knew that it was going to be overrun quickly. So therefore, we're not placing any faith in your ability to defend yourselves, and we're out. We're done. Hindsight is 2020. There's no way I cannot, unless you show me evidence that says the Taliban would have taken over in 3 days and everybody knew that, and if Biden ignored that, then I would blame Biden for that too. Just like, Trump ignored the fact that in the presidential daily briefing in early January that COVID-19 was spreading in the country. But he ignored that because he likes to downplay things. So, there you go. Finally, I think the other thing, unless anybody else has anything, let's see the chat. It's our obligation because we had a nation we went in, we did damage, we obligated responsibility for what we do. Yeah, if you make a mess, you clean it up. But I don't believe if do you clean it up if they're just going to make a mess again? Like, if I go clean my kid's room because, it needs to get cleaned, and then the kid just messes it up again, I'm no longer have any desire to clean my kid's room again because, the kid's going to have to clean it up or whatever. I don't feel like I'm going to have to do it. If I, if I make somebody dinner or something and the person just drops it on the floor and keeps dropping it on the floor, I'm going to stop cooking that person dinner. Like, let's see, conservative Christians, according to Demonox, are the biggest hypocrites. Where in the Bible does Jesus say, love thy neighbor unless you didn't vote for them, or do unto others whatever you feel like because they look different than you? And capitalist Christians are also hypocrites. The Bible literally says, all debts forgiven in 7 years, regardless if they are paid, and that banks and creditors are against God. So, just saying. Yeah, that is true. And that's Old Testament, or my Testament stuff, I should say, because I don't believe in a New Testament. But that even in the Christian Bible, Acts 4 and 5 is all about how you need to be socialist. Give up all of your wealth so it can be redistributed to those who need it. And if you don't do it, then you should die. That's what Acts 4 and 5 says. For some reason, conservatives conveniently ignore Acts 4 and 5. See, if you're making the mess destroy their organization, you can't blame them for making a mess again. Okay, but I guess, let's say I make a mess out of my kid's room. I guess that would be a better analogy. If I made a mess out of my kid's room, and then I'm like, okay, well, I need to clean it up. But if I knew that my kid was just going to make a mess out of it again, then I'm less inclined to want to to clean it up. Maybe if I clean it up, but I think we have. I think the whole nation building was the attempt to clean it up. It was just corrupt. We could probably speak for another hour and a half about the corruption that was going on when it comes to Afghanistan. There is the Inspector General report. Let's see, Inspector General report on Afghanistan. The SIGAR. If you want to go to SIGAR.MIL, the Inspector General's report for Afghanistan construction. And the name of the report is what we need to learn. It's not what we learned. It's what we need to learn. It basically says we didn't learn anything during our 20 years here. We didn't learn anything at all. We need to learn these things. U.S. government spent 20 years and $145 billion trying to rebuild Afghanistan, its security forces, civilian government institutions, economy, and civil society. DoD has also spent $837 billion on war fighting, during which 2,433 troops and 1,144 allied troops have been killed, and 20,666 troops are injured. Afghans have faced a greater toll: 66,000 troops killed, 48,000 Afghan civilians. This is the thing I don't understand. I always thought it was Afghani. I thought Afghan was like something you wore or whatever. I didn't think it was proper to call somebody an Afghan citizen, but I guess recently I've learned that's a proper way to do it. So 75,000 have been injured, both most likely significant underestimations, according to this report. Lesson 1, strategy. U.S. government continuously struggled to develop and implement a coherent strategy for what it hoped to achieve. So if you don't have a coherent strategy, you're not going to do anything with it. Lesson 2, timelines. The government consistently underestimated the amount of time required to rebuild Afghanistan and created unrealistic timelines and expectations that prioritized spending quickly. These choices increased corruption and reduced the effectiveness of the program. The systems in Afghanistan. I mean, what is it? Didn't the former president of Afghanistan, when he fled, didn't he flee with like $100 million or something like that? Something ridiculous. Many of the institutions and infrastructure projects the United States built were not sustainable. Reconstruction programs are not like humanitarian aid. They're not meant to provide temporary relief. They serve as a foundation for building the necessary institutions of government, civil society, and commerce. Every mile of road the United States built and every government employee it trained was thought to serve as a springboard for even more improvements. However, the U.S. government often failed to ensure its projects were sustainable over the long term. Billions of reconstruction dollars wasted as projects either went unused or fell into disrepair. Lesson 4, personnel. Counterproductive civilian and military personnel policies and practices thwarted the effort. The U.S. government's inability to get the, quote, right people into the right jobs at the right time was one of the most significant failures of the mission, also one of the hardest to repair. U.S. personnel in Afghanistan were often unqualified and poorly trained, and those who were qualified were difficult to retain. DoD police advisors watched American TV shows about policing. Civil affairs teams were mass-produced via PowerPoint presentation, etc. Lesson 5, insecurity. Persistent insecurity severely undermined reconstruction efforts. The absence of violence was a critical precondition for anything U.S. officials were trying to do, yet the U.S. effort to rebuild the country took place while it was being torn apart. Helping Afghans develop a credible electoral process became more difficult as insecurity across the country worsened, intimidating voters, preventing voter registration, closing polling stations on election day, etc. Sounds like Republicans. Lesson 6, context. U.S. government did not understand the Afghan context and therefore failed to tailor its efforts accordingly. Effectively rebuilding Afghanistan required a detailed understanding of the country's social, economic, and political dynamics. However, U.S. officials were constantly operating in the dark, often because of the difficulty of collecting the necessary information. Lesson 7, monitoring and evaluation. And this is just like the header and a couple of sentences that I'm giving. This is much more detailed. Monitoring and evaluation. U.S. government agencies rarely conducted sufficient monitoring and evaluation to understand the impact of their efforts. Conclusion. The report raises critical questions about the U.S. government's ability to carry out reconstruction efforts. Rather than motivating the U.S. government to improve, the difficulty of these missions may have instead encouraged U.S. officials to move on and prepare something new, according to Robert Gates, former Secretary of Defense from 2006 to 2008. I have noticed too much of a tendency towards what might be called the next war-itis, the propensity of much of the defense establishment to be in favor of what might be needed in a future conflict. Overall, the kinds of capabilities we will most likely need to use ahead will often resemble the kinds of capabilities we need today. The U.S. agencies should continue to explore how they can ensure they have strategic planning capabilities, reconstruction, doctrine, policies, best practices. And this is just, these several pages are from just a summary of the report. The full report is 140 pages. The full report is 140 pages. And again, it's not called what we learned from Afghanistan. It's what we need to learn, i.e., we haven't learned this stuff yet. It needs to be learned. What else? Oh, there was the other point to make. The two idiots in Congress, Democrat Seth Mouton and Republican Peter Major, snuck off to Afghanistan clandestinely, claiming that they were there for oversight with the pullout process. Now, you could have negotiated, you could have talked to the administration about this, say, hey, how can we do this in a way that isn't going to mess up your efforts? But two rogue congressmen going to Afghanistan thinking that they're doing any sort of, fact-checking or fact-finding mission about what's going on in Afghanistan, and then when they leave, when they have to leave, unless they brought their own plane, they're taking up 2 seats that could be left by somebody else who really needed to get out of there. So it's ridiculous that these congressmen went over there. And I'm frankly, I want to say I'm probably a little surprised that it's a Democrat and a Republican, but I'm not that familiar, I guess, with Seth Mouton and what his feelings are, how he operates. I don't know what side of the political spectrum he is. Let's see. Let's just do a search for Democrat Seth Mouton and see what comes up about him. Let's see. He's from the 6th district. Do you know about Seth Mouton, Deminox? Deminox, I'm okay if we left them both behind. Seth Mouton is from Massachusetts, the 6th district. So are you familiar with Mouton at all and what he is? What he is? Let's see. There's a Boston Globe article. Seth Mouton, a Democrat who is speaking up truth to Afghanistan and President Biden. He goes to say the withdrawal is anything short of a disaster would be dishonest. Let's see, blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not going well. It's not a good thing. But who's to blame if we're going to play the blame? Deminox says, I am not. Where's the 6th? I don't know where the 6th is. Warren and Markey and Neal are my area. But Warren's a senator, and so is Markey, right? Neal's a Republican. Well, you're in the other side, right? It's Boston now. It's Baston. You have to have a wicked hat accent. Last time I did this, I drove Sadie and Deminox a little nuts with my horrible Baston accent. Weston, Mass. Anyway, so yeah, those 2 fools are just over there being fools, and it's ridiculous that they went ahead and did that. But let's see, blah blah blah. Go over the comments that I might have missed. But my comment about obligation was taking refugees. We're obligated to take them. We displace them. Yes, absolutely. We're obligated to take refugees. We should be. We also put those people, even if they weren't displaced, we put the people who worked for us in danger because that makes the Taliban more likely to want to take them out and punish them for working with, the evil Americans. The people in Afghanistan didn't accept us there. Why did they want to accept them here? That's what Being a Boy says. The ones who helped us did accept us and did want to work with us and did work for us and helped us and put themselves in harm's way. So yeah, no, we should accept them here because we asked them to help, and those that did the translating did. Those who did other work for us did help us. See, we told them to rebuild the country. That's why they accepted us for 20 years and bringing places. So what? They could have told us to get out. I mean, the Taliban were probably telling us to get out the entire time. There are probably many people who were not in the military, not in the Afghanistan military, who wanted us here, maybe because they knew that the Afghanistan military wouldn't be up to the task. But yeah, Deminox correctly says you go up to a tank and it doesn't have any armed guards and tell them to leave. I don't think it'll go the way you will think it will. Briefly, you had one person in China in Tiananmen Square standing in front of a bunch of tanks, but that didn't change anything in China either. It was the liberals with bleeding hearts that made it difficult to leave. I mean, all right, here's what I'm going to say, and I know Deminox is going to laugh. But according to Bringing a Boy, it was a liberal that got us to leave. The liberal is the one that pulled out. That's it. The liberal is the one that pulled us out. It's always a liberal that cleans up the mess of conservatism. Because conservatism is a failure. It's a failed ideology. That's why you always need a liberal to clean it up. But then when the liberal is cleaning up the mess of the conservatives, it costs money. And then the conservatives like, look at all this money that the liberals are wasting. When it was the fact that we wouldn't have had to spend the money in the first place if the conservatives didn't screw it up in the first place. But, I'm calling Biden a liberal, and that's sure what Demonox is going to laugh at. Let's see. Let's see. Cut off for snap. So that's all that. Let's see. Do it. Scroll back down. Your accent is wicked pisser. It depends on if you're the North End or the South. Southie on coffee. Just don't drive a truck onto the bridge of Mass Avenue. I don't live there, but I think I'm aware of the picture. I would say it's leftists that clean it up, the ones we called liberal in the 80s. Now liberal kind of means centrist. I mean, I kind of use liberal and progressive and leftist interchangeably, but that's probably because I'm called Liberal Dan, and I'm a pragmatic progressive, and I believe in some leftist ideas like universal basic income and Medicare for all. So that's probably why I call myself a pragmatic progressive, and it's probably why the Venn diagram of liberals, leftists, and progressiveness, I'm somewhere in the intersection of all three. Let's see. Mouton is a Marine veteran, anti-Iraq war. He is calling to evacuate allies. I don't know his politics, but that's his statement. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Sadie, for that. Appreciate it. Anyway, so unless anybody else has anything else to say about the topic, I think that's pretty much the end of all of my topics. Oh, we do have a caller on the phone. I think this is our friend from the West Coast. Hello.
Hello. Let me know if you hear an echo or not, so that way I can take it off the speakerphone.
You're good for now.
Okay.
Well, I now do hear me. I do hear me. I am hearing myself, so you might want to take off the speaker.
Okay. Let's see. How about now?
Let's see. Can I hear I can't hear no, I still hear myself now. But whatever. Go ahead. Make your point.
Okay. I took it off. We should be back to normal. Okay. Yes. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to mention the name Brzezinski. If you're familiar with Bridzu, I think that's how you pronounce it. Zygmunt Brzezinski, in relation to the post on MSM. Anyway, so he was the first person that got us involved with Afghanistan under Lyndon B. Johnson. And from there, he went under Jimmy Carter's also administration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, his philosophy to under counsel or his counsel for foreign policy was that of, so the Russians were in Afghanistan and the U.S. wanted them to get out, so they created the what was it, the Taliban?
Yeah, pretty much. Or what became the Taliban, and what at some point whatever became the Taliban. Yes.
So so they went into Afghanistan at that point, and so his philosophy is, so we'll recruit terrorists and arm them, and then we'll use them to take out whoever we want to take out at that time, if we want to take over a country, and basically let them battle it out so that we don't have to. And so they were created under a Democrat administration. But Bush is also, you could say, a Democrat in sheep's clothing, pretending to be a Republican.
I would highly disagree with that statement. There are plenty of issues on Bush that he would not fit in under where he wouldn't fit in under that big tent, or whatever our tent is, if it's big or not. I really don't think that Bush fits much under there. I understand. It's very convenient after the fact to say that a politician is, I could probably point at more things that Reagan did that is more in common with the Democratic Party, like, giving amnesty to 12 million undocumented people here in this country, making an argument that, those are, I mean, not that Reagan would really find a place in the Democratic Party either. I mean, Reagan famously said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party left me. I guess that doesn't mean he left
and
all
under
of
Bush,
his...
you had the digital records and HIPAA stuff put in. So they're all pretty much, they've been a single party. It's not a two-party paradigm. It's a one rule, but they like to put on a good show, a really good show.
Left wing, right wing, same bird type argument.
Yes, right.
Okay.
And I say that just because there are some politicians, as you pointed out, whether they've been in the administration or at the head of the state, which would be the president, and our Pentagon departments and so forth, they have people in there that are more right-leaning or left-leaning, but they have both still in them. And so it just depends on the strength of their beliefs and whether they can influence others to lean that way. But what we're seeing, and what I'm seeing anyway, is that we just have a lot of bloodthirsty neocons in our government. And our government is not representative of the people like it should be. And it's very disturbing to know, how our government has basically bullied the rest of the world. And for that, we've sacrificed lives on both sides, whether it was a country we went into, but more importantly, our people here who had volunteered to serve, believing that they were fighting for freedom. And basically, it was their resources.
Right. I mean, we agree. I mean, there are bloodthirsty people who and I'm not exactly sure if I would say like, would you call Trump a neocon?
Say no.
Okay.
And I would say no because of the fact that he was doing everything he could to smooth things over with the rest of the world. When he tried to, because you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. And so when he thought, as far as, hey, I'm going to talk to Putin, see if we can work something out there. But then everybody said, oh, he's a Putin puppet. Oh, see, that figures because Russians stole the presidency for him. Oh, Trump's in with the Russians. Oh, this investigation, Russia. And so he ended up blowing that out of the water and going, putting sanctions on them. Same with Kim Jong-un. Their relations were building.
Well, one of the points I would make though about that is like during the campaign, Trump literally campaigned on in one of the debates said that he would go over there and bomb the women and children and go and take their oil too. So Trump ran.
He said that because we've been in that war for forever. He said it should have never happened. We should have never gone over there. And he said I would just be done with it. I'd go over there. I'd carpet bomb everything, bring our guys home, and just end it.
Well, why the need to carpet bomb? That's my point. The fact that he was willing to carpet bomb says that his level of bloodthirst potentially matches the ones that you're criticizing the neocons of. There are your libertarian-minded type folk who are in the Conservative Party who are very much against foreign interventions, and that's fine. And there's probably some agreement that could be had there, left and right, on that issue as well.
He was also talking about eliminating NATO at that point as well, which he was highly criticized for. He said the Cold War is over. We don't need NATO anymore. So that goes along with what he was saying as far as let's just be done with this whole terrorist thing, get it over with. Okay, those were just hyperbolic words as far as carpet bombing, but people understood what he was saying as far as let's just end that, come home. We don't need to be there.
But see, I don't think that's the case, and I really don't think Trump was trying to.
Then why would he want to get rid of NATO?
Because he was Putin's puppet, but that's a whole other show. The reason to get rid of NATO is
you know what they're talking. There's Putin's butt. There was never any evidence of that. People just like to pass that along. If you can prove to me that there was actual evidence showing, he was his puppet.
He begged Russia to help. He begged Russia to help him on live on television.
He said, and if you can find Hillary's 30,000 emails, he says, that would be great. You'll help me out here.
That's
help me out and find Hillary's 30,000 emails. He was joking because everybody kept saying Russia, Russia, Russia.
What? But no, it wasn't Russia, Russia, Russia at that point. At that point in the campaign, it wasn't. I don't think the Russia, Russia, Russia comment was at that point in the campaign. At that point in the campaign, I don't think it was earlier. I don't even know when the Russia, Russia, Russia. I don't remember when specifically the Russia, Russia came out.
That's when it started.
But
that's when it started, because from there on he was like, he's serious. He was asking Russia for help to win the election, and they helped him win.
But you can, but you can only use the "I was just joking" so far. You can only use that so much. You can only say "I was just kidding" about that.
Why is that? I didn't know there was a limit on just joking. He was talking to his base and basically trying to irritate the
he wasn't talking to his
media.
base. It was a
he
press
liked to
conference.
Get the media going.
It was a press conference. It's just like during his press conference when he said that he wanted to ban all Muslims and to put a total and complete ban on Muslims entering the country. You know, he said that, and
a temporary ban to find out what the hell is going on is what his words were.
Right.
We need to put a temporary ban on all Muslim countries until we figure out how to vet them and figure out what the hell is going on.
Well, he said total and complete ban until we figure out what's going on.
No, there was temporary. It was temporary.
No,
and he used Obama's list.
No, that's the thing. He didn't campaign on using Obama's list. He campaigned on total and complete.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter because he ran on complete xenophobia. He ran on xenophobia.
But what he did is what matters.
No.
What he did is what matters. Yes.
When somebody tells you who they are, you believe them. You don't make excuses. You know, if I say I want to kill all these people, but then I only kill half the people, do you then say, oh, well, he only killed half the people? If I want to if I want to do things that,
that's a little extreme. Killing somebody.
A little extremist, but if you show,
I mean, I could just get pissed off by having some road rage and going, you know what? All these freaking black people need to leave this country. They can't drive. They don't know how to drive, or these Asians or whoever, you know. Wow. And I don't mean it, but at the moment I'm pissed off because of this one particular person's actions.
Maybe that's the difference.
Get rid of them all.
If a black person cuts me off, I don't start trying to blame the person who happens to be black, the driving all on them. I think that's.
Well, I don't go around saying I'm going to kill all these people too, like you were just saying.
Okay, but like
me too.
Well, he said he was, but I'm trying to do like Trump did, where he was like, let's go over there and bomb all the women and children, you know, and take their oil.
To do like you did.
I was paraphrasing what Trump said. I'm not literally saying I'm doing that, but no, that's a little different. But the point is that if his campaign promise or campaign platform or plank was total and complete ban, and he only bans people from 7 countries, then why that's not reason for me to say, oh, well, he didn't really mean all of the countries. He only meant those. No, he should have only said countries that sponsor terrorism, or countries that have proven themselves to have, you know, large upswells of terrorist activity going on. No, he said total and complete ban of all Muslims.
Trail, he said when he said that.
Right, but
yes.
there's
so politicians say a lot of stuff.
Yeah, politicians do say a lot of stuff, but politicians say things.
We weren't supposed to be having mandated vaccines, and you know, now we're talking passports, and you know, now we're hunting domestic terrorism. Basically, anybody that's white. So my husband could be arrested for domestic terrorism just because he's white.
No, was your husband involved in the January 6th insurrection? No. Was he there?
It doesn't matter. You didn't read you have to read Merrick Garland's foreign policy.
Well, there's.
If you disagree with the government, you feel that they are overreaching, and you express those thoughts, they will take you in, and it is in his policy. I read it, and I also read the fact that he joined up with Christ Church in New Zealand. It's called ChristChurchCall.org, and they are part of GIFT. It's spelled GIFCT.org, and what they are social media sites. They deem themselves a 401c3 class NGO. They call themselves NGOs. Yeah, believe me. Go to the website, to the DOJ website, and you will look up for the speech of Merrick Garland and foreign policy, and it is freaking scary. Those were his words. You can watch the video, or you can read the transcript.
I'll have a look. Maybe you can email me that to me just to make it easier. But point is that a lot of conservatives will like to say that Donald Trump was just joking about what goes on, or just joking about what he says. He wasn't really serious about that. He was just kidding. Well, let's listen to Donald Trump.
That's why they call him a caricature or whatever. I think I'm pronouncing that right.
I don't kid.
There you go. Donald Trump, when he made his comment about slowing down testing, he goes, "I don't kid." He does not kid around. He clearly said that he doesn't kid around. That is not what he does. That is not his manner. When he says something, he means it. And whether or not it's good or not.
all the other politicians.
I
don't know why everybody has to hold him to his word, but let everybody else slide. I mean, Joe Biden made a lot of promises on the campaign trail too, and so far he's basically ignored all of them.
Which policies do you believe Biden ignored?
The masks, the mandates.
What about the masks?
The passports. He wants to institute. He wants people to wear masks. He wants the children to wear masks. There are clips of him talking about it.
Well, he does, and he's trying to do whatever he can do within the confines of his authority as president to do those things, because we should have masks.
He's doing it through the CDC.
Right, but
and no, we shouldn't. He said he wasn't going to make anybody. There were going to be no mandates. He said under his presidency. Are you saying
there was supposed to be no mandates at all? Period.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can.
As far as the vaccine goes, yes. I'll have to find that clip and send that to you too. But they all say things.
Yeah, they all say things. So but one of the reasons that
Trump says.
Well, because one of the reasons y'all like one of the reasons y'all like him is because of the fact that you say that he's not a politician. You claim. You say a lot of those Trump supporters says that he says what he means, and he's a plain speaker, and that he doesn't do what the other politicians do. So either that's true and he says what he really means, or he is a politician and he doesn't say what he really means and he's just kidding all the time. But just like
that's when you have to examine the context of what he says when he says it.
Well, I mean, the context was clearly from a letter that he posed. He read verbatim from his press release that he wanted a total and complete ban on Muslims entering this country. He didn't make any ifs, ands, or buts about it. And again, my point is that just because he only implemented those first 7 countries, it doesn't mean that he wouldn't then try and do other countries too later. It's just because
if he originally wanted all Muslim countries banned, again, it was a temporary.
It wasn't even all Muslim countries.
We find out what the hell were going on.
Well, he did say until we find out what's going on. But who knows? But that's still indefinitely until we find out what's going on. And he said he wanted to ban all, not just all Muslim countries, because he wanted to ban all Muslims from entering country. That's a significant difference. Even so that means a Muslim person coming from England, a Muslim person coming from France, a Muslim person coming from Brazil, and wherever you're coming from, all 150.
To protect the United States.
Right, and you don't do that by blanketly saying that all Muslim people are bad people, because that's not the case.
Well, at the time, if you recall, we were having terrorist attacks left and right, not only here, but everywhere else in the world. And it seemed to be Muslims that were doing it. And so instead of taking a chance and having some come in, because there were some that didn't have papers, because as far as where they were, who they were and everything else, because they were coming from countries that didn't have a government, so they couldn't actually vet these people. So we couldn't vet these people. So at that point, them in like
at that point, you say this person can't come into the country because they're not vettable. You could say we're going to stop people that are coming in the country who can't be vetted. That I have no problem with saying that, but that's not religion based. That's I can't vet you because you don't have the proper paper trail, so therefore we're not going to let you in the country. And if you said that, fine, that's fine. I would have had no problem with that. But then Trump wouldn't have gotten the votes that he got, because Trump had to go after a large segment of the population that's xenophobic white supremacists. That I'm not saying that all Trump supporters supported those things, but all Trump supporters had no problem with the fact that Trump was pandering to those things, and that in and of itself is problematic.
How is that? He was protecting the country. When you have San Bernardino terrorists, homegrown terrorists flying back and forth, okay, they were living here already. When you have the nightclub killing, with another Muslim, you have the base, what was it, the army base, where you had that person, he was a Muslim. So it's like, we don't know who's who, and they were Americans. And so it's like, all right, we need to just stop them all from coming in right now until we figure out how we're going to do this as far as letting them in, the good ones. And at that point, there were terrorist attacks happening in France. There were terrorist attacks happening in the UK, on their bridges, at their concerts. I mean, in Canada. I mean, they were just boom, boom, boom everywhere. And so at that point, you've got to stop it.
Well, maybe
You've got to stop it to protect the country. That was his job, to protect against all foreign and domestic enemies. And in this case, we had people who were here that were Americans that also had maintained a dual citizenship. So
his job was
he did his job.
That's very important. His job was to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic, yet he did nothing when we had domestic enemies attacking our capital. But here's the thing, and maybe I understand your point. Maybe I understand, but
he wasn't president anymore then.
January 6th?
November 3rd.
January 6th, he was still president.
6th.
He was still president January 6th. Joe Biden didn't become president until January 20th.
No, he wasn't. Until the 20th, I know. But technically he was
technically
not
he
president
was. He
anymore.
was in
Besides,
charge.
give me a break at the end of his presidency.
If there was an attack that came from another country attacked us on January 6th, Trump would have been like, well, it's Biden's fault. I'm not president anymore. I'm a lame duck. It's not my responsibility. It was his responsibility until noon on January 20th, 2021, to be president and to uphold his oath of office to protect people from all threats, foreign and domestic. So it was absolutely his responsibility to act and to be able to, especially because of the fact that since Washington, D.C. does not have statehood, then therefore it's under the guides of the federal government. But I can understand maybe why you're making the point that you have the fear of what maybe what you read from Garland is making you fear that Garland would act like Trump and say, well, we have to protect this country from white nationalist terrorists, and because the only way to determine who a white nationalist terrorist is, maybe there's no way to tell, so we have to then treat all white people as bad. Maybe you think that that's what Garland would do because that's what Trump done, and you've just justified Trump doing what he's doing, but they are then afraid that Garland is going to do based off of the problem of the threat that exists of white supremacist, white nationalist terrorists in this country.
Is that what you heard? Oh, my word.
Well,
not
no,
even close. All I was saying as far as the January 6th thing was not justifying what happened on that day.
No.
It was okay for Trump to ignore that day. I said Trump wasn't actually technically president anymore.
No, he was technically president.
Technically he was. I misspoke, okay?
Okay.
So, but I didn't say what he did was okay on January 6th.
No, what I'm talking about, no. I'm talking about what he did with the Muslim thing. What Trump did with the Muslim thing is say, here are some terrorists that are Muslims. There's a group of terrorists that are Muslim terrorists, or that there are terrorists who happen to be Muslims, okay? So he took that and said, because we don't know how to determine who the non-terrorist Muslims are from the terrorists, his plan was then to ban all Muslims from entering this country. And that was the justification.
That's right.
So then, but you then have a problem with Merrick Garland. What you're claiming that Merrick Garland is going after all white people or all people who speak out against the government, because there's no way to determine how those people who speak out against the government who are domestic terrorists, and those people who speak out against the government, and those people who speak out against the government who are not domestic terrorists. So I'm having a problem.
Wrong.
I'm having a problem understanding. I'll let you in, Deminox, in a second. I have a problem understanding how you can justify banning, treating all Muslims as if they are potential terrorists, but not treating all anti-government conservatives as if they're potential terrorists, when both groups have subsets that are terrorists, and the reason. So if it's okay for Trump to do it, then why is it not okay?
Last time I checked, Americans have the right to express themselves without having to worry about being called in or hauled in for disagreeing with the government. If I sit here and talk
I
about
agree.
the
I agree
government
with
as
you.
far as I think Joe Biden's an idiot, and it's not a matter of not knowing how to vet these people.
No, I agree. No, wait.
About,
I'm gonna have
but
to
I'm
mute you.
just
I need
saying,
to.
as far as
I need to
these
mute.
are
I'm gonna
his
mute you a
words.
second. I'm muting you a second because I don't want to get this in. I agree with you. People have the right to speak, and it's not just citizens. This is not just a right that citizens have. This is a right that all people have in this country. It's not. The Constitution doesn't strictly constrain the right of free speech to only citizens. It's non-citizens as well. And for some reason,
it's for Americans that live under the Constitution.
No.
The Constitution is
It's
a protection
all
of those rights.
persons. No, it's all. Everybody who is in this country is protected by the Constitution. Has the rights. The rights that are given to persons or people are for everybody in this country, regardless of whether or not you're a citizen or not. There are specific rights.
The Constitution doesn't give you your rights, though. It protects
the Constitution.
It does not give you
the
rights.
Constitution protects the rights, but the Constitution doesn't protect those rights for just citizens. The Constitution protects those rights for all people. Like just because somebody is here who is let's say somebody is somebody who's here on a visa that's not a citizen. That person still has the right to not have, invasive, improper search and seizure. That person has the right to a fair trial if that person is brought up, on any criminal grounds. That person has the right to free speech and to say whatever it is they want to speak, because that's what our country guarantees and protects. So the rights of
they're here illegally.
If they're here on a visa, but even if you're not here.
Okay.
Even if you're not here, and even if it's proven that you're undocumented and that you're not here and you're here in violation of our border policies, you still have rights. You still have constitutionally protected rights. Constitutionally protected rights protect everybody. They don't protect. There's only like a specific set of people who don't get the whole, natural born citizen thing because you were born here. There's a specific set of people like, children of diplomats. But other than that, there are specific things that citizens can do, or that you have to be a citizen to do, like, you have to be a natural born citizen to become president. That's something that somebody who is not a citizen can't do. But if you're if there are all the other things that are enumerated or even not enumerated in the Constitution, because a lot of conservatives like to forget about the non-enumerated rights that people have as well. But there are the enumerated rights: freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of association, all of these things that people have, these rights that people have. It's people. The Constitution is specific when it says people have these rights. It's not just specifically for citizens. So yeah, I agree with you that you as a citizen and me as a citizen and everybody else who's participating in the chat, everybody else who is in this country should have the absolute right, and it should be protected, to be critical of this country for anything that the country does, be it under, I don't care who is president, I don't care who is the leader, I don't care. We should have the right to criticize the government and criticize the actions of the people in that government. That's weird. I have somebody on twice and hold. It finally went on hold for you. So for some reason it took forever to do that. But anyway, my point is that my point is that's not my point. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be free to speak out against the country. What I'm saying is that if you're justifying Donald Trump saying that you can, that he is going to stop all Muslims from entering the country because some Muslims are terrorists, so you're gonna judge the entirety of Muslims by the few that are terrorists, and that's okay for you because we don't know how to differentiate between those that are terrorists and those that are not terrorists. And if you're okay with that, then if you're also going to claim, and I'm not going to say it's true because I haven't seen it yet, I need you to email me that, liberaldanradio@gmail.com. Email me that. And if you're going to say that, I think there was a glitch on Blog Talk Radio because for some reason I have a lot of people. I'm going to hang up on everybody in the thing. If you want to call back, call back. I am going to hang up on everybody right now and just hopefully call back in if you want to call back in, and maybe that will fix it. But again, if you are saying that Merrick Garland is saying, you're saying that Merrick Garland is saying that just because you speak out against the government, that means that they can round you up and take you in as a potential domestic terrorist. I haven't seen that that's what he said. So I'm going to say that I haven't seen that is what he said. But let's just play for a second that it is what he said. If that is what he said, and that he's going to treat people who speak out against the government of this nation, and he's going to treat the ones of those subset of that group who are terrorists, who are domestic terrorists, and then he's going to have a group that are not domestic terrorists. If he's going to say, well, there's no way for us to tell the difference between the domestic terrorists and the non-domestic terrorists and treat them all as one, then it's hypocritical to complain about that when you justified it for Donald Trump doing it. That's my point, is that if it's okay for the goose, it's okay for the gander. If it's okay for Trump's policy to be, let's treat them all as potential terrorists until if we can figure out how to tell the difference otherwise, then it should be okay for Garland to say, let's treat all white nationalist, anti-government folks as if they're terrorists, even if they're not. Now, I disagree. That if Garland did say that, and if Garland did say that we need to treat all people as if they are terrorists and round them up or whatever, absolutely I'm against that. 100%. Because you have the right to free speech, and you should have the right you should be allowed to be considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And so the government should not be treating you as if you are guilty until proven innocent. So if you are able to show that Garland did say exactly what you're claiming he said, then I will absolutely criticize him for it. But I will still be critical of you being critical of it, because you're okay with the treatment of all Muslims that way. If you're going to say it's okay to treat all Muslims, we were friends at the time when this was being considered, when this was being proposed, when this was announced in 2016. We were friends with a Muslim. We have neighbors next door that are Muslims, and under his proposed policy, if they went out of the country to go visit family out of the country, they would not be allowed back, because that would then be a Muslim entering the country. So that was one of the main problems with Trump's policy, is that it was so broad that it doesn't matter who the Muslim was. There are people who were people here who were interpreters working for the U.S. government, who were not citizens, who were having problems getting back in the country under Trump's rules because, it was too overly broad. Anyway, I think this is Demonox. Hello? Were you able to get in? Can you hear me? Can you talk? I can't hear you. Maybe there's a problem. Is anybody still listening on the Blog Talk Radio side? Am I coming through on the Blog Talk Radio side, or is it just, do we just have the YouTube feed at the moment? Because I can't hear Demonox. What about this caller? Caller, can you hear me? I think this is somebody calling through Skype. Can you hear me? No? Yes? Maybe? I don't know. No, I can't hear you either. I'm going to put you back on mute. So it does seem like there's a phone issue on Blog Talk Radio, but at least I'm being able to continue this on YouTube. And what I can do is, if for some reason the Blog Talk Radio audio has crapped out, I can at least download the audio from YouTube and then re-upload it for the show, so we'll still have the whole show. The Blog Talk feed is mute. Lovely. That's great. That's wonderful to hear. Blog Talk Radio sometimes is a failure. But let's see. Nope. Let's see. No. I can't even hear the Blog Talk Radio has crapped the bed, apparently. Apparently, I tried to play the audio for Blog Talk Radio, and it just absolutely crapped the bed. So I'm not even going to be able to play the outro music. So we're going to have a very, very slow, very, very dull and basic with no outro music stuff going on there. Which is unfortunate because I like having the outro music when we eventually get to it. Let's see. Nope, yeah, I'm still not hearing it. So Blog Talk Radio has crapped the bed. Boo. Let's see. No sound. In fact, the timer stopped completely. For some reason, for some reason when I was, I guess, trying to mute, it just looks like something's like, it's my timer says that I have 55 minutes left and 28 seconds. But I would play it. I can't even play Trump now. I can't even say it is what it is because it isn't. It isn't what it is. Let's see. The chat's working apparently, so the chat is able to. I'm able to get the link that our good friend from out west shared with us in a speech Mark has delivered. Pleased to announce the administration today is releasing the first national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. As part of the effort, law enforcement. Attorney General Reno originally created, but after Oklahoma City. Current efforts comes after the heels of a large and heinous attack on January 6th. We have enormous attacks ahead to move forward as a country to punish the perpetrators and do everything to prevent similar attacks. The resolve and dedication, blah, blah, blah. We have arrested over 480 individuals and brought hundreds of charges against those who attack law enforcement officers, obstructed justice, and use deadly force and dangerous weapons to those ends. Yada, yada, yada. We know from experience domestic terrorism and violent extremism comes in many forms. This effort begins a rigorous look at the problem we face. In response, we have not waited until completion of the national strategy being implementing it. Justice Department, for example, the FBI has increased the domestic terrorist information. Blah blah blah. Through the anti-terrorism, we established strengthened domestic terrorism expertise. We've determined whether or not investigations should be a hate crime, an incident of domestic terrorism, or both. We will ensure carefully track investigations. The actions the agency taken. First, we are focused on violence, not Well, here's here's the one words from it. One set of words from it. First, we are focused on violence, not ideologies. That doesn't confirm what was said by our caller. In America, espousing hateful ideology is not unlawful. We do not investigate individuals for their First Amendment protected activities. And so maybe bringing it, boy, if you can, maybe you can give me some of the text that where you and your wife believe, because multiple times we do not prosecute people for their beliefs. Across the world, extremist or terrorist labels have been affixed to those perceived as political threats, but there is no place for partisanship in the enforcement of the law. Justice Department will not tolerate any such abuse of the authority. It is critical that we condemn and confront domestic terrorism, regardless of the particular ideology that motivates individuals to violence. Our focus as the federal government to prevent, disrupt, and deter unlawful acts of violence. So I want to see where it is in this speech, where in this transcript it says, as it was claimed, that that Merrick Garland is saying that we should be locking up. In the chat on YouTube, through a directive we issued earlier this year, we are ensuring that we carefully track investigations in cases with a domestic terrorism nexus. That doesn't say anything about what was said on the call. That does not prove the call as made or the statement made in the call. That doesn't prove that at all. That's not a thing. So far, I've found nothing in this document. I haven't read it letter for letter, but again, it is your responsibility as the one making the argument to back up the argument. So maybe if you can cite, I mean, there's no line numbers here, but maybe we can cite what exactly like several words that I could search to find an entire paragraph, for example, where we have a policy directive that states that simply speaking out against the government is enough to make you get arrested. Because so far I've seen statements that absolutely contradict that. So at the moment I'm going to say that Garland, as far as I can read in the words that I'm seeing here, I've seen several statements that contradict what was called take overt steps to violently resist or facilitate or offer the United States government. Okay, so we're going to search for those. We're going to search for that. That's right there in front of it. The March assessment concluded that militia and violent and extremist press, which it describes as those who take overt steps to violently resist or facilitate the overthrow of the United States government in support of their belief that the United States government is purportedly exceeding its constitutional authority, also increased last year and almost certainly continue to be elevated throughout 2021. Particularly concerning his March assessment observation that the threat from lone offenders or small cells possess significant detection, disruption challenges because those actors' capacity for independent radicalization to violence, ability to mobilize discreetly, and to access firearms. This does not say, these are not the words, these words do not say we are going to take people and lock them up because they are opposed and speak out against the government. That is not, that those words and what you said, what was said on the call, are two completely different things. One is there's no Venn diagram showing an intersection. You have a circle here. I can't. There's not enough window here, but you have a circle here. Hold on, circle here and a circle here, and they're far apart. I have too little room to do hand motions and to make large hand motions with the things because I wanted to leave room for the chat, which unfortunately is the only thing that seemingly still works right now on Blog Talk Radio. So I guess that's the benefit of me doing it on YouTube. Maybe I might have to just stick with YouTube, although without Blog Talk Radio, I don't have the nice soundboard. Maybe I have to make my own soundboard. Maybe I can figure out how to do that. Anyway, but no, I'm not seeing any evidence that Merrick Garland is suggesting that we lock up people who speak out against the government and treat them as if they are the same as people who invaded the government with violent force on January 6th. So there's that. So clearly that does not appear to be the case. I'm open to the idea where you can show me another link or another set of text that clearly states that Merrick Garland is saying that in order for us to be able to figure out what's going on with these domestic terrorists or with these domestic terrorists or these white nationalists, that we have to take acts to lock all of those ones that speak out against the government up until we can figure out what's going on. If he says that, if there's a point where he says something like that, like how Trump did with the Muslim statement, then absolutely, I will criticize him for that. But that does not appear to be the case at this point. At this point, it seems to me that there is that there's justification of Trump doing that, but then complaining when you believe that other people are doing it, but other people aren't doing it. So I don't know what to say about that. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and end we're ending the episode on Blog Talk Radio because I can't use the audio anyway, so we're just closing that down. Although maybe that kills the chat too. I don't know. We'll just leave that chat window up. But I'm gonna just call this. I could actually hold on. I could do that. Hold on. I could figure that out. Here we go. We could have a show ending. I can figure that out. I could do it. I could do it manually. Let's see. It's over here. No, that's not there. Audio. Taking too long to figure out how to do. No, it's not that. Audio to upload. It's being a pain in the neck. Anyway. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to. I thought I might have that audio available Is it in the bumper? That's on the quest in and on the quest out. This is a darn shame. I have this. I could play this. It's not the end of the show, but...
Goodbye, Donald. Goodbye, Donald. Goodbye, Donald. You're going to leave us now.
There's that. That's how I started. So I could also play... Wait, I can still... Even though the Blog Talk Radio thing is not working correctly, I can also still play this.
Woo dog, down here in Liberal Dan's Chopper City, we got some steals on Harley Davidsons today. Turns out holding Sturgis wasn't that bright of an idea, but while festival goers pass away, we're passing on the savings to you. All our Harleys come freshly sanitized for your riding comfort, and while supplies last, we're throwing in some antibacterial gel and a 12-pack of 2-ply, just in case the stores run out again. So come on down to Liberal Dan's Chopper City and get you a hog today.
Liberal Dan Chopper City is a fictional establishment, and we don't know what the death toll of Sturgis will be.
So there you go. The ad won't get old, but the ad will never get old, and apparently some of the people in South Dakota won't get old either. So, of course, the people who went to Sturgis.
He chose poorly.
Yes, they chose poorly. I thought it might be under my board sounds folder. Unfortunately, that's a damn shame. I don't know if that's the right one or not. Let's just open this file real quick. No, I don't think is that the end of it? I don't know. We'll see if this is the end of it or not. Nope, that's not the right song. That's a completely different song. Killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. Anyway, I don't think I'm going to have any luck finding this ad. And neither will the children of anti-vaxxers. Yes, that is also true as well. It's not. Why don't I have a show end folder? I'm so unorganized. It's terrible. So unorganized. I'm just kind of killing time right now just to see. No, it's not there. It's not there. It's not there. I could have show end music, but it would be I could play the end of a show, but it would be me talking over the show as well. Let's see. No, I'm just having fun at this point. I'm just enjoying, me going through my audios and finding things to play without having to do. And I know it's not the bumper music. I know it's not on the quest end. That's a different song. Pain in the neck. This is just raw audio. So this is just all the stuff that I downloaded for use in other shows that I was able to chop up when I was more organized back in the day. Let's see. Apparently, the Garland administration knows better than Trump how to deal with domestic terror. Well, clearly, I mean, that is a true statement. Daily News. That is a true statement that the Trump organization or that the Trump administration had no idea how to deal with domestic terrorism because the Trump organization just let them go and let them continue the attack on the Capitol, even though there were people who were trying to call him. I really want to see what McCarthy has to say, if McCarthy's ever been called to speak on the record about the whole thing, to see what the conversation was that he had on the phone with Donald Trump, because apparently he was very angry with Trump that day. He quickly switched his ways of doing things and switched his thoughts because he knew that if he continued to go up against Trump, that he was going to get that he was going to lose politically. So he figured he knew which side of the bread, what side of the bread was buttered. Is that the right one? Yeah, Trump. Well, Trump called some people very fine people. Trump told the insurrectionists, he said, "I love you." He said, "I love you" to those people who were committing acts of terrorism and insurrection and attacking police officers and spraying them in the head and hitting them with flagpoles and gates and slamming their heads in doors and trying to break through locked doors with broken windows and then getting shot. So let's see. So I will hold you accountable. I mean, Merrick Garland, if he screws up, should be held accountable. But here's the thing: if Merrick Garland does something like you suggested that he might do, if Merrick Garland arrests people in a way that is just about their speech and not about their actions, then I'll be the first person in line to criticize Garland for that. Again, I may be a registered Democrat. I'm not beholden to the party. I'm not beholden to any particular people who are part of an ideology, because if you do something like that, you're proving that you're not part of the ideology to begin with, that you are a fake or a fraud. So I'm not going to sit here and just make excuses for somebody just because I happen to believe that he should currently be sitting on the Supreme Court. But there's me supporting somebody who should have been on the Supreme Court, and then there's me saying, well, if you do something wrong, like if there's a Supreme Court justice that I happen to typically agree with, if they make a bad decision, I'm going to criticize them for the bad decision. And if they make comments that I disagree with that are wrong, I'm not going to make excuses for them and say they were just joking. But there are people, who, again, one of the conservative talk shows that I listen to regularly, they were calling the people that are in prison for their actions on January 6th, he was calling them political prisoners. They're not political prisoners. They're criminals. They're terrorists. They're domestic terrorists. They're traitors. And should be dealt with accordingly. Let's see. I bet you believe that Governor Whitmer was kidnapped she wasn't kidnapped by anybody. There was a plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer. And the conservatives are ridiculous. The conservatives in her state invaded the Capitol as well, armed. Went into the Capitol, yelled in the face of police officers in the middle of a damn pandemic, when they were complaining about the fact that they were being asked to stay home. They weren't being forced to stay home, because if they were forced to stay home, they would have taken them out of the Capitol building by force and forced them home. But these people were screaming in the faces in the middle of a pandemic of people risking their health. So much for the thin blue line. Thin blue line falls apart. Support the cops falls apart when the cops try and do things that inconvenience them. The only time that these type of anti-government folks, white supremacists, white nationalist folks support the cops is when they're attacking black people. That's the only time they don't support the cops. They don't support the thin blue line. They don't back the blue. They only back the blue when the blue is bashing in the brown and the black. That's as simple as that. That's the only time that they support the blue. Any other time, they couldn't care less about the blue. Especially when the blue is doing things like, protecting people. The blue uses deadly force against terrorist Barbie. Guess what? They're going to defend terrorist Barbie and say that the force was over the top while making excuses for George Floyd. Look at that. We're at 2 hours and 23 minutes. I didn't want to do a 3-hour show, but it looks like we're doing a 3-hour show. Trump hasn't been president for months. Trumpers still don't have lives. Not obsessed with Trump. Dan, who plotted Governor Whitmer kidnapping? You seem to think that it's somebody else. Who plotted to kidnap Michigan governor? Defendant in plot to kidnap Michigan's governor. Sentenced. Ty Garbin, 25, has pled guilty to taking part in an extremist plot driven by anger at the governor's efforts to slow the spread of the coronavirus. An airplane mechanic Was the first person to be detained, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It was part of the anti-government paramilitary group, in Michigan called the Wolverine Watchmen. Coalesced around protests around anti-government, blah, blah, blah. Who are the Wolverine Watchmen? Who are the Wolverine Watchmen? Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Self-styled militia members who were angry at missions discovered, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's frickin' paywall. So who do you think? Who do you think the Wolverine Watchmen are? Let's see. It's not that simple because the black and brown support police too. I mean, there are black people who want to have good cops. There are black people who want police to act well and who will support police who do act well. But I'm talking about the hypocrisy in those who are like, back the blue, and then like go attack the blue on January 6th. Who bash the blue's head in a door. Who've made it so that these people who were trying to just do their jobs and defend against domestic terrorists, domestic enemies, a domestic threat. And now they have to go into counseling. Now they have to deal with, PTSD. I think one of them was saved simply because of the fact that, he said that he had kids. And so one of the crowd was like, okay, we're going to protect you. So one reasonably okay person in the crowd who was like, well, let's not make these kids lose their father. Let's get him out of here. Everyone else was out for blood. So it's just damn unfortunate that, there's such excuses as you need to, if many conservatives would be consistent, and I'm not saying that there are liberals that aren't, there are not liberals who are not consistent. I'm sure there are. I've seen them myself. I've seen, there are many in the Senate. Most of the Senate is hypocrites because, let's nuke the filibuster when we're in power, but let's maintain the filibuster when we're not in power. That sort of thing. That's hypocrisy. And that happens on both sides. So both of them are hypocrites. On this show, I've called for the replacement of all 100 senators at the time when it happened, because I felt that all of them were being ridiculous. But, just like with earlier in the show, we had we were talking about how it was okay to treat Muslims as if they're all potential terrorists, but then how it's not okay to treat white nationalists as if they're all terrorists. Why? Well, because, the white nationalists are here, and maybe because of other reasons as well. Trump is so irrelevant, Sadie Sins, that he needs to give quotes because he's not online and no one cares what he has to say. Well, they had, what was let me pull this up. There was something else. I did want to go over this statement that Trump made. Because Trump, even though he can't use Twitter, he's found ways around it by having some media groups tweeting his statements for him. Some media groups, in quotes, we'll quote it. Oh, Jesus. There is a hashtag going on. Maybe we'll end the show with this bit of fun. We'll see. There's a hashtag going on that says, that is hashtag said during sex and a Trump rally. That ought to be different. Let's see, Daily News. Daniel, I am white. Absolutely, I am white. What's your point, Daily News? What's your point, bringing a boy? I'm a white person who doesn't want to have white supremacy. I don't believe in white supremacy. I believe that we should have equality. I don't think that my whiteness makes me superior. It should not make me superior in any way, shape, or form. Someone can easily make a false claim. I've done shows about people making false claims about me bringing a boy. I don't know, maybe you should need to look back at some of my past shows and learn about that. I have made shows about people who have made false claims about me. It sucks when people make false claims about you. But who's having false claims made against them? Who? Let's see. Statement by Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the United States of America. Biden surrendered Afghanistan to terrorists and left thousands of Americans for dead by pulling out the military before our citizens. Again, not logical, because how is he to know that Kabul would fall that quickly? There's no way for him to know. The working assumption, which should have been your working assumption too, is that the Afghanistani government was going to stand on its own and use the equipment that we donated to them to defend themselves against the Taliban threat. And with their numbers and superior technology, they should have been able to do so. Instead, they went. So there's no way that we could have known that. Now we are learning that out of 26,000 people who have been evacuated, only 4,000 of Americans. Okay, they should be all dealt through. Like, this is an argument that a conservative made today on some point. I don't remember if it was the show or not. But like, those all Americans should have gotten out first, and he said America first. Well, if you have a half full plane and you don't have all the Americans there yet, and you have other planes coming in, you don't hold the plane for those Americans. You let that plane go and you fill it with all of the people you can, Americans and non-Americans, and then you put the next group on the next plane. So that's stupid from our former president, but I'm not surprised. You can be sure the Taliban, who are now in complete control, didn't allow the best and brightest to board these evacuation flights. Instead, we can only imagine how many thousands of terrorists have been airlifted out of Afghanistan and into neighborhoods around. So now he's trying to claim that the people we're letting out of the country are terrorists simply because they're not Americans. Again, and I'm sure Bringing It Boy is applauding that statement. Are you applauding that statement? That because 2,200, according to Donald Trump's statement, I don't know if Donald Trump is correct or not, but according to Donald Trump's statement, if there are 2,200 people who have been evacuated, that there are some amount of people of those group who are supposedly terrorists. How many terrorists will Joe Biden bring to America? We don't know. Is there a chance that a terrorist might have slipped through? Did I think to myself, well, what happens if somebody who is a Taliban person uses these escape flights to try and get other places in the world? Maybe that's something that could be considered, or maybe should be dealt with. But if you're worried about getting people out quickly, there are trade-offs that you get from quickly. And just because they're being brought to places around the world, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're not going to be processed further when they get on their next hop before they go to America. And again, you're just assuming that just because they're not a citizen, just because they're in Afghanistan, someone who's a citizen of Afghanistan or who's born or raised in Afghanistan, that this person is should automatically be treated as if they are a terrorist, which just goes to further confirm the bigotry of former President Donald J. Trump. That's the bigotry that he ran on. He ran on the bigotry to a total and complete ban of preventing all Muslims entering this country. He ran on a border wall, a xenophobic border wall between us and Mexico, because Mexico was supposedly sending us rapists and murderers. That's who Mexico was sending. Rapists and murderers. That's who he believed was coming over. There's no people coming over. I guess some of whom, are good people. Let's see. Trump unleashed the police on... Yeah. Trump wanted to do the photo op with the backwards upside down Bible, and there were whatchamacallit. Bye, Sadie Sins. I appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, Jesus. All right, let's go over a couple of these things. The hashtag said during sex and a Trump rally whilst we're finishing up the show, I guess. I think I might regret this in the morning. Things said during sex at a Trump rally. Let's see if we can sneak in through the back door. Don't worry, we don't need protection, with a dog that's wearing a mask and a dog not wearing a mask. A condom, it's a hoax, said during sex at a Trump rally. Spread out, it will look bigger. Let's see. Said, this one's good. Said during sex and at a Trump rally. Nice sheets, and it's a picture of a three Klansmen, but one of them is in a pink robe. because when you accidentally wash your MAGA hat with your white sheets. Said during sex in a Trump rally, "Stop, Dad," and it's a picture of Trump trying to touch all on Ivanka. Let's see what else. Things said at during sex at a Trump rally. Are we related? Said during sex at a Trump rally. Why doesn't he just finish already? He's not impressing anyone. Picture of Trump with hamburgers. Another one of his things that he tweeted out that shows his lack of mental acuity. Hamburgers. Look at that meaty spread. Said during sex at a Trump rally. Why is it so sweaty and orange? Picture of Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend. The best is yet to come. Well, if the best is yet to come, the best is not having sex with a Donald Trump man, with a Trump male. That's for darn sure. Let's see. Let's see. Let's snort some more of these horse pills with pictures of ivermectin. Tell me what I want to hear while we tweet things, said during sex at a Trump rally. Small hands can be a good thing. I'm just asking for a small donation. Grab him by the hoo-ha. Mind if I include my puppet with a picture of Pence. This is my pillow with a picture of the My Pillow guy. It's not stiff enough. Maybe put something on it. Trump's hair. You look better with your clothes on. Let's see. Hope you brought protection. It's so small. These ones are getting worse and worse and worse. Not as worse as in, like, I appreciate the bad humor, but worse is, just not less funny. But anyway, I like the ones that we read so far. So anyway, that is it. And we'll just go ahead and stop the show here. We'll go ahead and end the show. Allow YouTube the chance to process it, and then we'll re-upload the audio to Blog Talk Radio. So anybody who's listening on Blog Talk Radio will be able to hear the entirety of the show and not the part that they just happened to miss out. Anyway, so this is the end of this week's episode of Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, That's Right. We will be live next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central, blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan, assuming Blog Talk Radio is working. And also here on YouTube, Liberal Dan Radio on YouTube. Please remember to support the show. Subscribe to me on YouTube. Follow me on all my different social media platforms. And if you want to support the show as well further, you can become a Liberal Dan Radio Patreon. I'll give you a shout out like I do, to your boy Chris, to my friend Cesar out in California, to Deminox, the first Liberal Dan Radio patron as well, who makes these awesome shirts. And also, big shout out to my little brother, the host of the most Nimbus Yosh, with the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast. So, thank you very much. We are going, thank you. And if you can't afford a monthly thing, there's always the option to buy me a cider as well. That's also on Liberal Dan. Till next week, this is Dan Zimmerman with Liberal Dan Radio.